With more than 100 years of experience between the four of them, covering Minnesota high school athletics, the Minnesota Sun newspaper's sports editors bring you Sun on Sports.
I'd like to throw a name at you guys, Cretin Durham Hall. What do you, Mike? How about Cretin this year?
I don't think you can discount them because they have talent. They have a returning quarterback. They have very good linemen. Last year when they played Lakeville South in the state playoffs, Lakeville South with a pretty good defensive line barely laid a hand on the Cretin quarterback and almost never touched a Cretin running back in the backfield, and several of those guys, including, as we all know, Chantrell Henderson, are back this year. I do think Wayzata's probably separated themselves from the pack in Class 5A now. I would not dismiss Eden Prairie's chances because they are still so good on defense. Whether they would be able to move the ball well enough against a team like Wayzata, if that matchup ever came to pass, that would be my question about them.
I guess I'd be looking at maybe Blaine and Champlain Park too in the mix. They always seem to get to that top level, at least one of those two teams. Mike Corton, of course, does a great job at Champlain Park year after year, and that Blaine program is just moving right along. Also, Nick, how about those two teams when you talk about them in the same context as Wayzata, Cretin, and Eden Prairie?
You're right about them. Shannon Garrity's done a tremendous job in getting Blaine back to a level that they were so accustomed to being in the late 90s, early part of this decade even. And Mike Corton's never lost more than 3 games in a single season in his 8 years at Champlain. This year, though, I just don't think they have enough defense. Both teams are susceptible to teams that with good offenses, and they proved that against each other. The game was 31-28, and I think it was big play after big play. I think there were 7 touchdowns scored that night that were over 45 yards. I mean, it was just one of those games where they couldn't contain anybody, and I think that would be a problem. Like I said earlier about Wayzata, you can't get into a track meet with them because you won't score enough. You won't consistently. They'll turn you over. They'll make the stops on 3rd down. And they'll do the little things inside a football game that separate them. That's what separated them. Champlin's got the unenvious task of having to go through Wayzata to get to the state playoffs. They're in the same section. Each of the last 2 seasons, that's been the section final. By all means, it probably will be, again this year, unless something, happens between the Champlin. I don't think Wayzata's going to lose. The game's going to be at Wayzata again, most likely. And I mean, that's just to go over there and try to win inside that stadium is a tough task. Wayzata plays so well at home, and you talk about the rest of Northwest Suburban. Andover's a team that has had some spark this year. They're playing energized. They're playing exciting football. They got a great tradition. It's a new high school, but they got a great tradition over there. Have you ever been to a game over there? It's a great atmosphere. For the PA guy all the way down to how they run the game on the field, they do a wonderful job over there. And we'll see if there is a team from the Northwest that can do something. It might be Andover just because they play more defense, but that's the only separating factor.
There's Nick's sleeper pick. Mike, how about your sleeper pick? Do you have one for the playoffs? A team that is improving, could surprise down the line, maybe make it all the way to the semifinals?
I don't know that I'd necessarily term Rosemont a surprise team because they were expected to do pretty well even before the season started. They're 2-2 now. Lost to Eden Prairie at Eden Prairie after losing a 14-point lead in the 4th quarter. Lost in overtime at Eastview when they moved the ball up and down the field but scored just 10 points. They're my favorite to come out of Section 3 because they have a good running game. They're very solid on defense, particularly at linebacker. Their offense, they have several returning starters on the offensive line that can help make the triple option go. I just can't see them not making the state quarterfinals. Even though they lost at Eastview a couple of weeks ago, I think that they're probably right now the better team.
I'll give you guys my sleeper pick, and that's Hopkins. Simply because Hopkins is explosive on offense. They're a big play type offense. Billy Gregg has come in and done a great job at quarterback. He has Andre McDonald on the receiving end of a lot of his passes. Dame Mafe is a big, strong running back, very fast at 6'1", 215. And they've got Gavin Grady, a big play man on defense. So look out for Hopkins. If it's a warm night outdoors in November, they're going to be a tough team to beat.
Oh, what we might see is Eden Prairie versus Hopkins twice this year, because I know they're scheduled to play a non-conference game, and they seem to be on a pretty much a collision course for the Section 6 championship. And regardless of where that game would be played, it's turf. It would take place on turf, so it would certainly give an opportunity for Hopkins skill players to display that.
Well, it should be interesting as we look ahead to the playoffs, and we're out of time. Thank you for joining us, and be sure to join us on the next Sun on Sports.
For the scores and more, tune in daily to mnsun.com/sports. And tune in every Saturday morning to Sun on Sports on AM 950, the voice of Minnesota.